Welcome. I'm Bernard Norcott-Mahany. I am your instructor for classical mythology this semester. Welcome to the online class. I'm hoping that the semester will turn out well and that you'll enjoy yourself. Classical mythology, I think, is great. I think there's a lot to be learned from just reading stories or listening to stories and getting a sense of how stories work and that sort of thing. Myths are special stories, but they're still stories. And so this is, in a sense, from my perspective, largely like a literature class. And that's sort of largely the way I'm going to look at things. The one mistake overall that I'd say that students generally make in this class, or maybe in many classes, is that they wait till the last minute to do stuff and then try to cram in a bunch of knowledge. That, as a strategy, that's a bad strategy. That will not work as far as learning the material. And what I'm hoping your goal is to actually learn the material to get something out of the class. If your only interest is getting the grade, then obviously what you want to do is plan your strategy to maximize your grade. But that's not knowledge. And I'm hoping that even if you're aiming it for a good grade, that you'll try to learn what you can. And so my recommendation is that you do regular work an hour at a time. So I don't know how many hours per week you absolutely need to do well in the class, but I'd say aiming for something in the vicinity of 7 to 9 hours is probably about right. If you try to do that all at once, like say you've got a Saturday free or a Sunday free or a Monday free and you're going to try to cram it, what's going to happen is you're going to get an hour or maybe a little more of good work, and then the rest of what you do is not going to actually show any benefits. What I would recommend you do instead is that you spend maybe an hour a day or somewhere in that vicinity to try to get something done. If you can't spend an hour, spend a half an hour on a particular day, maybe spend a little more the next day. But I think if you spread the work out, you'll find that the work is manageable and that you'll get more out of it. Okay. Now, that's especially going to be true for the weekly discussion posts that you're going to make. You need to make 5 discussion posts per week, 3 of your own, and then you're going to reply to two other students. The easiest way to do that really is read your material for about an hour, maybe a little less. Could be 40 minutes, could be even half hour. And then once you've done that, try to figure out what is it you've read, get a sense of what's going on, what puzzles you, what really jumped out at you, what did you not expect that you found, what conclusions can you draw, what questions can you raise. Those sorts of things will come to mind. And then you've got your work for a discussion post and you can get that posted. So if you do that 3 days in a row, you've got your personal discussion posts all done. And then you need to just reply to 2 fellow students. It'll make that part of the assignments easy to do and easy to get an A on that portion, which is going to help your overall grade. So again, I urge you, break up the work into smaller, manageable units to the extent that you can. If you don't do that, I think you're going to find that you're not getting as much out of the class as you'd hoped. Sadly, there's not much I can do about that. That's really largely on you. Third, let's talk about the books for the class. There are 2 books for the class. First of all, you're going to be using Lisa Maurizio's Classical Mythology in Context. If you've got a mythology book and it doesn't have a cover that looks like this with Athena's head on the front, then you've got the wrong book. Right? This is the only edition of. It's the first edition. It's the only edition of this book that's out there. You can get this through the bookstore. You can get this, online, at Amazon or other online merchants. You can get an electronic version, though I think there is an advantage to having the actual book over the electronic version. For one thing, for some reason, the electronic version doesn't give line numbers in the readings, and that makes it more difficult to talk about the material, because if you've got line numbers, you can actually refer to line numbers. So But at any rate, those are out there. They're out there for rental through Amazon, through the bookstore. You can get a pretty good deal on that as far as a rental for the semester. The book, every mythology book has pluses and minuses. The plus of this, I would argue, is it has pretty good translations, not the best of any of the myth books I've seen out there. And it has scholarship attached to it. Most of the mythology books do not talk about how scholars look at myths. This book does. It also provides things from the Judeo-Christian tradition and from elsewhere in the Mediterranean, the Middle East, of comparable myth stories, which again is nice for comparison's purpose. And it has a structured way of looking at the Nachleben, the afterlife of myths, by looking at modern renditions in art, in film, in fiction, which I think is great because it's sort of all there in the book. A lot of the other books, that stuff has to be constructed from outside, and you've got big gaps. That said, one drawback to the book is it does not really spend enough time. I would argue a week to 2 weeks would be the right amount of time to spend talking about what Romans do with Greek mythology. This book doesn't really do that. There is a little bit in here. We will look at that in some detail when we get to the end of the book. But to rectify that error, we've got our other book, which is Virgil's Aeneid. This is an abridged edition called the Essential Aeneid, edited and translated by Stanley Lombardo, who was a professor of classics at KU. He did a famous translation of the Iliad and of the Odyssey, also of Hesiod and other ancient authors. And then he decided he would tackle Virgil. He does a pretty good job. I hadn't read it in a while. I used it last term, but hadn't used it, in a while before that. I think his translation is very readable. I think it moves the thing along very quickly, and it's very concise, which I like. So this is an abridgment, but it has the main stuff. You'll be writing a paper on this. We'll have a discussion on Virgil's Aeneid later in the semester. So get those books. Now, you've got 2 items that are due this week, that they're due on Friday. And then you've got another thing is going to be due a week from Monday, so this coming Monday. I'm going to have another post online about that, but let me just talk about the first 2 assignments that you should get to right away. They take next to no time, and you'll be glad you did. The first is a discussion board, and it's your class introduction. So you're going to introduce yourself to the class, then you're going to reply to like 1 or 2 other students, and that will complete that assignment. It's largely so you get familiar with how to do discussion boards. If you've taken an online class, you've done them before, I'm sure, but at any rate, this will, just make sure that you know how to do that. This is going to be due on Friday, which is the 21st, so make sure that you get that done. I would say if you've got time today, take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, do your introduction, and then, on Wednesday or Thursday, look over them and then reply to a couple other students, and boom, you've got that assignment done. You've got your 20 points for this assignment, and that's 20 points you've got in the bank, which you might need later. So, okay, please get this done. You also need to get this assignment done or the other assignment done to be counted as attending the class. If you do neither of them, you will be dropped for not attending the class. So make sure you get these assignments in. The other assignment is there is a quiz, 20 question multiple choice quiz on the syllabus. It's called the orientation quiz, but it's mainly about the syllabus, and that's also due on a Friday. Now, unlike the tests where you get one shot, you take the test and that's it. The orientation quiz, after you take it, see what score you got. I would argue if you did not get at least an 18 out of 20, which would be an A-, that you should retake it, at least until you get that score. But that's up to you. So those 2 things, the class introductions and the orientation quiz, are due on this Friday. One final thing that I want to just mention is that on the class website, look at the modules to familiarize yourself with those and with the announcements. Now, two things that I want to just mention to you right now. First of all, the chapter 1 we're largely skipping, but I would urge you to look at the PowerPoint. I saved it as a PDF, so you should be able to open it. The PowerPoint of the lecture on chapter 1. I also recorded me talking about those slides, so you can play the recording, which is also there for chapter 1, while you're looking at the slides, and you can sort of get a lecture on chapter 1. This will familiarize yourself with terms like legend, myth proper, and with folktale and other things that would be worth your knowing. So anyway, I urge you to sort of look at that. If you don't look at it, it's not a tremendous loss, but later on you might have trouble like understanding some of those terms. So, and if you look at the module for chapter 2, you've got a similar lecture, PowerPoint, and the recording. And in the announcements, I've got actually links to video lectures that I did, where I did a PowerPoint and I sort of did voiceover. Those are all on YouTube. There's a link to them. One warning, the software that I used was not great at capturing everything, so every now and then some words or phrases, even whole sentences, get dropped, which might sometimes make it difficult to follow. It's sort of like watching a TV show with bad reception at times. I apologize for that. I'm trying to sort of re-record those, but I don't know if I'll get that done this semester. I might get a few of those redone, depending on whether COVID lets me, go to the college and try recording them there with proper recording equipment. So one other thing that I want to say about the module for chapter 2, there is a thing that says Hesiod's Theogony by West with commentary. It's a PDF. It's near the bottom of the module. That gives you the text of the entire Theogony by West, which is the translation in your book, with notes by me. So in other words, I went through the text, and everything that I thought was unfamiliar or confusing or whatever, I have footnotes. And so you can actually read along. The reason this is important is if you have trouble getting the book, like if it's going to take you a week or so to get the book, use that PDF and go through the Theogony, which is the main thing. Get that done so you get that under your belt. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself way behind, and then it's going to be difficult to catch up. So don't want to take any more of your time. I'm glad you're with me for this semester in mythology. If you work hard, if you sort of do regular work, I think you're going to do well as far as the points go, and I think you'll also learn something. The key thing is learning something. If you learn something that you can carry on, that matters more than anything else. If you get the points and that's all you're going for, then I guess that's a win too if you get those points. But I think it's going to be tough to get a decent score if you don't actually make the effort. So here's hoping that you make the effort. I'm going to do my best to help you out as I can. And you'll see me again in another short video where I'm going to address 5 points about Hesiod and about the Theogony as an introduction to your reading of those works. And that should be posted tomorrow or so. Take care.